Hi out there! Today I'm going to do a quick time-lapse video to show you how I drew these apples on a branch. You can see me already starting off here getting to work on these leaves. I drew all of the leaves first and then I came back through and worked on the apples. I was drawing this on Rising Museum mount board, which is a really interesting surface to work on. It's a super thick paper and I just love working on it. It's one of my new favorite surfaces to draw on and I've been using it quite a bit lately. I am also using several different brands of pencils. I've got Prismacolor, Polychromos, Luminance, Derwent Drawing, Derwent Lightfast, and also some Lyra Rembrandt pencils. You do not have to use all of those different brands of pencils. Even just one single brand would be sufficient, but I have all of those pencils, so I like to take advantage of the different characteristics that they have. I drew all of these leaves the exact same way. I started off by indenting the paper with one of my sharp Polychromos pencils. I was using either the white pencil or the ivory pencil depending on the leaf, and just really indenting that paper so that when I come back over it you can see that the pencil doesn't stick in those areas that I indented, and makes it really easy for me to create the look of those veins in the leaves. I worked through all of these with a few layers of pencil, and then I'm going to come back here in a few minutes. You'll watch me blend this all out with Gamsol, and then I come back through and add a second layer of pencil all over everything. There was a lot of contrast in this drawing. I even increased the contrast a little bit from the reference image, and I also cooled down the colors some. So my greens are a little bit more muted than what I found in the reference image, and that's just a style choice. But I used a lot of the Prismacolor Kelly Green and Sap Green Light. I also used quite a bit of the Polychromos Chrome Green Opaque. There was also some olive green from Prismacolor, some racing green from Derwent Lightfast. So several different greens that went into this, and then all of the cream tones, the ivory from Polychromos, and then a couple of the different Luminance pencils, the olive brown 10% and also the Naples ochre. I was using those pencils to get some of the cream tones that were in the highlighted areas of these leaves. Here you can see me working on this jumble of leaves that's right in the center of the drawing. This is just the kind of detail that I live for. I love drawing this stuff. This is like a puzzle. You just have to fill in what you can figure out for sure. So if I see a little shape and I know that's supposed to be dark, I'm going to go ahead and try to get that filled in. And then I just continue working back and forth through this area until I can start to make some sense of it. It can be a little bit intimidating at first to jump in on an area like this, and again, my best advice is just start with what you know for sure. If you see a dark area that you know you can go ahead and fill in with a black pencil or one of your darker shades, go ahead and get that filled in, and then just move on to the next thing that you know for sure. Here I'm just working on, there's a small little section of a jumble of leaves that's close to the stem. I got the reference for this image from Adobe Stock, so make sure if you want to try to draw this yourself, you do have to license that image yourself. This is a section of the video that I did for Patreon. This is a real-time drawing tutorial that I did where I showed exactly how I was drawing this leaf right next to the reference image. Just kind of went back and forth in real time and talked about what I was doing. And here I'm blending that out with Gamsol. Using an electric eraser to add some texture. That's another thing that I do in a lot of my drawings. An electric eraser is one of the essential tools that I use in almost every single drawing. I like to sharpen the tip by running it on some sandpaper. So now I'm working my way through the rest of the drawing with the Gamsol. Gamsol is a solvent. It's an odorless mineral spirits. There are other brands of odorless mineral spirits that would work very similarly. This one is just the one that I love to use. It is odorless, and that's a big plus for me. And it just dissolves the pigment, and it gives this really nice space for me to come back over. You can see me here. Now I'm going to just go back through every single bit of this drawing and just rework it, refine all the details, work on the colors, make sure that all of my dark shadow areas are dark enough and that my highlighted areas are bright enough. And again, just refining things, giving that really nice painterly look. I have to do quite a bit of work on those veins to thin them out and shape them and make them look nice. Like there you can see those were kind of wild, and now I can go over them and tone them down a little bit and make them look really nice. This particular leaf was very highlighted, and so that's a lot of that light sap green and quite a bit of that luminance, 10% olive brown. These were really interesting with a lot of shadow, the way they're kind of curled around the underside. And just constantly looking back and forth between my drawing and my reference image, trying to get things as close as possible, but I don't spend hours and hours making sure everything is perfect. This drawing took me around 12 hours, and I think I probably could have spent 50 on it, making it perfect. And that's just, again, another one of those style preferences. Here I'm working on the stem for this drawing. I flipped this upside down just to bring it a little bit closer to myself and make it a little bit easier. I used a lot of the Prismacolor French grays for this section. And blended it with Gamsol, and now I'm coming back over. Again, just refining it. I really like drawing stems and branches. You just need to add a lot of texture and some smiley face kind of lines, or frowny face, I guess, when it's flipped this way, just to make sure it looks like that branch is round. And now it's time to start working on these apples. And that flashlight you saw me using is a blacklight flashlight so that I can see where I've laid down my white pencil. Put some white pencil down in any of the really bright highlighted areas initially, just so that the pencil doesn't stick to those areas where I put the white pencil down first. And so it just kind of protects the paper a little bit. And I just used a number of different pencils in all of these apples. Used a technique that I call splotching, which means I just don't really fill in one area completely with one particular pencil. I tend to just splotch a little bit of color here and there, and then I come back through with another pencil and splotch it a little bit more, and it gives that really nice I guess depth to the fruit and a little bit of texture. I like to really play up any of those details and little imperfections on my drawings. If I see something on the reference image like that, I'm going to be sure to really accentuate it in the drawing. The other thing that's really important with these apples is making sure I keep my lines moving along that curve. You can see on the right side, I kind of made that curve, and then on the left side, I'm curving the other direction. Again, just to make sure I highlight the shape of the apple, wanting to make sure I give that 3D effect, and you can do that using those lines and also using the shadows and the highlights in the right places. But I'm always really careful as I'm drawing to make sure that my pencil is moving in that sort of curved direction. I'm never going to be going, for instance, horizontally across this apple as I'm working. Even when I come through with the Gamsol, I'm still moving that paintbrush in that sort of up and down arched motion. And again, just lots of different layers. Apple number 3, this one's a lot brighter. There's that flashlight again, just using that again so that I can see where I'm putting the white down. It's kind of hard to see white on a white paper, and the blacklight flashlight really helps with that. Used a lot of raw umber from Polychromos and a lot of that Naples ochre from Luminance in this one. I used some jasmine from Prismacolor. There you saw me paint with the Gamsol there a little bit, picking up a little bit of color and then dragging it around. You can actually paint, you can dissolve that pigment and pick it up and move it around. Or you can make sure you're working with a really dry brush with the Gamsol, and then for the most part that pigment will stay in place. But if you have a lot of pigment on the paper and you use a good amount of Gamsol, you can actually paint with that pigment a little bit. This is my 4th apple. These apples were all quite a bit different from one another, which really kept me interested in this drawing. Sometimes when you're drawing the same thing over and over, like with the leaves, you can get a little bit bored with that. It also can be a little bit more meditative because you don't have to pay quite as much attention. But with the apples, it just keeps you on your toes. I really had a lot of fun drawing these and using all of the different colors. So there's pros and cons to working on different sections of the drawing. There's an earth green yellowish, and I even used a little bit of yellow chartreuse, which is a really bright yellow green, just to brighten that up a little bit. Just a touch of that pencil goes a really long way. So this is the part of the drawing where I did another real-time tutorial for Patreon, where I drew this last apple, and again right next to the reference image that I just pull up on my phone, and I talked through in real time exactly what I was doing. This was another fun one, very shadowed on the one side. And I just built up that shadow in layers. I didn't come in immediately with a black pencil. In this first layer of pencils, I call that kind of the blocking in section of the drawing, where I'm just trying to start getting the shadows in the right places and the highlights in the right places and starting to work on the different colors that I'm going to be using. And then I can darken things up and brighten things up later in the next layers. Blending that one with Gamsol. And now coming back through with my next layers of pencil, really refining things, making sure I have the colors right at this point. Try to get my colors close to the reference image, but I also really want to make sure that all of the colors that I'm using in the drawing go with the rest of the colors in the drawing, just so that I have a really nice cohesive piece. And you see me bringing in even some of the greens that I used in the leaves in these apples. Signing my work, and here is the finished drawing. I hope you guys liked that one. If you are interested, there is a 3-part tutorial series available over on Patreon. In the first part, I do a 1.5-hour overview similar to this one, only much longer. And then I also have the 2 real-time videos that I talked about a little bit in this overview, one of the leaf and one of that final bottom apple. I also have a number of other video drawing tutorials over on Patreon, and you can find links to those on my website at jennifermorrisonart.com/Patreon tutorial links, or you can even just go straight over to patreon.com/JenniferMorrisonArt, and you can see all that I have to offer over there if you're interested in learning how to draw botanicals with colored pencil. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.